Eschaeology podcast. Many thanks to Resonix Sound Solutions for making this podcast a reality. There's a link in the show notes, but you can find out more about Resonix sound treatments along with tons of other info, resources, and products at resonixsoundsolutions.com. Now on with the show. I am here again with Mike Myers and Leonard Day. Hello, Leonard, and hello, Mike.
Hello, guys. How are y'all doing today on this lovely day?
Doing pretty well. I just spent the morning at Dollywood, so.
Is it really flooded up there?
No, it was pretty good today. Weather was super nice.
Nice. I would spend the morning with my wife fishing, catching nothing.
It sounds like you're not bitter about that at all.
That's what happens when I go.
6 a.m. out there and didn't catch one fish. We left around 12:30. Yeah, we was mad.
Man, I was on planes all morning. So Leonard's been pretty involved in the entire time. I think that at least I've been doing events and eschaeology and everything, especially in the Northeast. You're at the events up in Virginia, right? And
yeah, we used to do all of your soundologies at Chris, Nolte's shop.
Yeah, McNulty's. Yeah. There you go.
Yep.
Okay. For some reason, it's been a minute since that was back 2017-ish, I think.
That was those years, and then before that, when you used to compete years ago, when you was a really skinny guy.
Way back.
Yeah, way back. That's how long I've been. I've been in competing since the 90s. So I started in 96.
What got you going back then?
There used to be Town Sound. There's a shop up here in Pennsylvania, York, PA. And that was run by Greg Kitchen. And these guys from there was Keith Downey, guys like that, all of us.
Yeah.
And we used to have these car competitions. And I used to, they used to have these SPL competitions in the sound quality. And, I always had friends who had systems growing up. So I was like, well, let me try this. And one day I just said, hey, threw my hat in the ring, because I started out in SPL. First sub I ever had was a Ryan Cobalt with Sound Street amps, Lanzar DC. Then I moved up to the Lanzar subs. Started out like that.
Nice. Way back. What were you competing with back then as far as vehicle?
I'm going to date myself. I had a 1988 Plymouth Sundance hatchback.
Nice.
Champagne color. Yeah, 2-door. That's what I had. And
that's kind of like the Dodge Shadow, isn't it?
Yep, exact same car, but Chrysler, Dodge, how they had every car, it'd be different models, it'd be the exact same car.
Right.
I had that, and that's what I ran with for years, starting out in SPL, and then I got the infamous 98 Dodge Neon that everybody knows me for.
What year did you get the Neon?
I got the Neon brand new in just at the end of when they tried to sell off the new cars for the next year. So I got it at the end of 98.
Oh, wow.
Right at the end. So,
I didn't realize you had that long. So you had it from brand new.
Yeah, I did. I had that car from brand new until the day that the mysterious deer hit it up on the turnpike coming back from finals.
Was that the 22 finals?
21. That was Arkansas 21. I was coming back on the turnpike at 2 a.m. when I hit the deer, and it took me up in the air.
Oh, wow.
Yep, I was coming back. I had dropped Ron off in Ohio, made sure he got to a hotel, and I kept going. And I got on the turnpike, and I was 181 miles away from home when I hit the deer.
Wow.
And didn't get pulled off the turnpike until 9 o'clock in the morning.
That's ridiculous.
Yes. I won't do that again. Everything happened for a reason, because if any of y'all know me, I would have never got rid of that car.
Well, I mean, you had it for a really long time.
Yeah. It was still kicking, to this day. That car was a great car. I won championships with it. Everybody who's have heard it could never say nothing bad about it. I've redone it so many times with the different audio equipment and stuff, and it was still a champion to the day it died.
So when you first got the Neon, what did you immediately start doing sound quality with it, or did it go through the SPL path as well?
It went through the SPL path. So when it went through the SPL path, I was running first. I had sound screen, and after sound streams, I went to Sony. So my uncle worked for Sony Corporation. So I had the Sony ES stuff, Sony C90s, all of that stuff. I got them at, you know, from my uncle because he worked for Sony. And then for Sony was like at that year, just before they went to the Sony Explosions stuff
Oh, right.
and went off the cliff. I went to Lanzar DCs. Um, I had them, and then I went to Phoenix Gold.
Yeah.
So I had the old.
You had some Cove Audio subs in there at one time too, didn't you?
Yes, I had a Cove Armageddon 15. I still have that sub to this day, sitting up here.
Oh,
So
cool.
I had that sub in a 4.5 cubic box in the tire enclosure with the Phoenix Gold amps with an old school Phoenix Gold 232 titanium EQ. That's when they were the sliders. I had the
Oh,
Panasonic radio, Focals, the original Focal K series LEs. Actually, I still actually have those speakers sitting here to this day.
wow. So you did the SPL for a little while with that car. What made you transition over to sound quality?
Well, at the point of where sound, at that time, a lot of guys were taking their cars and they were going to extreme, cutting things and stuff. And my cars have always been designed for daily driving. And I wasn't about to cut my car up to go even further in that car. So I said, you know what? Let me move over to this side. I always like sound quality. I like to hear the music just instead of hearing the bass come down the street. So I made that transition, talked to Greg Kitchen at the time at Town Sound. There was Keith Downey, there was Ron Baker. All of these guys were there at the same time. So I made that transition over there and just started competing and was having fun. One thing is in the car audio community, when you meet a couple of guys and stuff, you become a family. And when you're first starting out, and it's great because you get to go different places, you get to see different cars, you get to meet different people, small towns, big towns, but you get a camaraderie of a lot of different aspects that you never see, and it's been fun. The journey has been fun.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that a lot of
We
people
need to get
that
back to.
yeah, I think everybody that is now here because they enjoy the interactions and social aspect of the sound quality competition.
Yes, because it's like how I met you, Mike. At that World Finals. That I'm still ticked about what you did to me. So anybody who don't know the story, I will tell it how Mike suckered me. Um, if anybody who knows Mike, Mike is always this church little boy. He comes up and talks to you. Hi, can I listen to your car? Yada yada. So he had his white Mazda protege. He had wrecked his other car, so he comes up and I had the neon. I had at that time I had I had scans in it, 10Fs and stuff like that. And I had all of that stuff in the car. And Mike comes up to me and he says, "Hey Leonard," because Mike Mac Daddy told him you need to go listen to Leonard's car. And he was like, he's in the same class with me. And this was Mecca modified. And after he listened to my car, he went back over there and retuned his car and beat me at finals. Ain't that true, Mike?
Well, I don't remember it exactly that way, but
How do
yeah,
you remember?
yeah. So that was one of those finals where Sound Team Six had a lot of people over there, and Mike Maddie, he said I need to go listen to your car because it sounded really really good, and it was in my class. So, of course, I walked over and I did ask for a demo, and you let me listen to it, which was awesome. And I was pretty impressed. It really sounded good. But then, of course, you're right. I did listen to the same songs in my own car, but I didn't retune it. I
You
basically
liar.
just listened to it and I'm like, well, he probably has me in this, like in sub bass or something like that, but maybe I have him in mid range or something. So I just loved it.
Lies. But ever since then, me and Mike have been really good friends. Ever since, because he was honest to me and told me about my car. So we have always been good friends ever since that.
Yeah, that was a good show.
It was great times. Like finals, that's the time where you get to meet a lot of good people, and you go against the best,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's a fun time. I met Clifton years ago when we used to have finals in Charlotte, North Carolina, years
Yep.
ago. Those were fun times.
Back when they put us in the parking garages.
Yeah. See, we're aging ourselves, Clifton. Stop it.
Yeah, that was there were some crazy finals back then. It's always
But
something.
they were so big, and you had so many manufacturers, that
Right.
like the newer guys nowadays don't get to see how finals used to be. Where you had sponsors. If you
Right.
had this equipment, you could just go to that person, and they, oh yeah, I tune your car. You got all of this stuff. You go to
Right.
that person, and it was fun. Like you would come out of finals with like 4 or 5 different goodie bags.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think I still have my MB Court toolbox somewhere.
That's awesome.
Focal CDs,
Yeah.
the shirts. I actually found the old Phoenix Gold shirts that he used to have,
Hmm.
and jackets.
That's pretty cool. The I remember at those finals, back in like Greenville and Charlotte and stuff like that, they would even have booths from like Sheffield Labs and Chesky, would
Hmm.
have booths there selling their discs and stuff like that. It was really neat.
Yep, and you used to see like the guys over in Europe used to ship their cars over and compete. That was the
Oh
fun time because you would like, you see different cars like the old DLS BMW. There was I forget the guy who used to have that Mazda that had the green paint and stuff in it. But you got to see different things.
Mm-hmm.
So after you crashed the Neon, you obviously got a different car. What kind of car do you have now?
I have a 2018 Nissan Altima SV. First, I was looking at a Camry, and I didn't like some of the things of the Camry. So when I went to the Nissan, I loved it. First thing I loved about it was bigger, had enough horsepower, and it was great for sound quality, just from the factory. Those are the key things that I look for because every car I have to build has to be a daily driver, and I must be able to take my family in it. So when I'm looking for a car, I'm not just looking for, oh, it's just great for sound quality. I'm looking for other things to be the factor. When I brought the Neon, the factor was it was just me. Kid straight out of high school, you wanted something economical and you could just ride around.
Right.
So later on, I still had the car plus kids and things like that. If anybody knows, I travel to every show. The car's not a trailer car, it drives. So that's the one thing I wanted to look at. And then I had hooked up with Zapco when the Neon had when I crashed it, and then I just started going from there and then started building it. And it took me 3 weeks to build it. When I finally settled with the insurance company and everything, what happened with that, I built it at my homeboy's house, my best friend's house, who helped me, and built it in 3 weeks, and it made its debut at Steel Valley in 2022 was its first show it ever came out with.
Nice.
I'd say yeah, three weeks of that build is pretty impressive when you're doing it at a buddy's house. I mean, that's pretty phenomenal even for a shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, see, the hurt thing is a lot of people don't know. I went on a King Salmon tour too during that time.
Hmm.
So I finished. I went on a Pro King Salmon tour out of 30 boats, I finished 8th place.
Oh wow.
And it was my first time doing king salmon. So it was great to come out. And then the car took first place in Emma, and it took 5th place in Iasca Pro, and was a Pro Am then, right out the gate with no tune on it, just time alignment and just crossovers.
What
That's
type of
what the car
equipment?
had. I had Zapco. I had a Zapco APs in the car. I had a 1100 for the sub, a 400.2, and I had a 150 by 4, all AP amplifiers, Helix processor. I was at the time I was running melodic acoustic speakers. At the time I was running those, and a acoustic elegant 15-inch sub. Now the car has changed. Still Zapco amplifiers, still a Helix DSP3S. Now I run Satori's, Plasma, and acoustic 15.
Are you using like analog from the head unit or digital?
No,
Or?
I do optical in my car. I changed over optical when I got the Sony GS9 when I had that unit, but I switched to a different head unit to a Altoto, it's an Android based unit. Because with this car I had backup camera and I did not want to lose that. So the GS9 was scrapped so I could have a still doubled in, have my backup camera and keep those features. So in my car, what I do, if anybody who's ever seen my car, look in it and they'll be like, it looks factory. I want you to look like you can go to the showroom and buy this car off of it as an extra option. So in my car, it's custom, but it has that factory look in it. So even like what people don't understand, like what I did to the head unit, put in the head, I had to paint it, sand it, do all of that stuff to make it look just like it was the factory in there. So it's a
Nice.
lot of work that got done in 3 weeks, and people couldn't believe it. And it was like, "You did this that quick?" I was like, "Yeah." So I had the time to do that stuff. And one thing is, I had my best friend who was the one who always taught me how to build stuff, and we just knocked that car out that quick.
Nice. That's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
As far as sound quality goes and competition and that whole mess of things, who would you say has influenced you the most over the years?
You know who's influenced me the most over the years? I would say Mike and his brother,
Hmm.
Julius Powell. That's my ride or die person. You know, anybody knows you see me, you see him.
Yep.
Guys like that, it's always about trying to push the limits. You ain't got to have the most expensive stuff to get the greatest sound quality.
Right.
It's about knowing how to properly install, properly tune. That's the key. That I think a lot of the guys nowadays have forgotten. They think a DSP can do everything. If you don't properly install it first, you can't get it to do. The DSP is only going to enhance what you did in it install. If you don't do those things correct, you're not going to get the outcome that you want. And it's too late because now you're trying to play, catch up. Do it right the first time, and then you can do all of the fine tuning later. And that's something that I think the new competitors don't understand when it comes to the old guys who've been in years of doing the stuff. Because I learned a lot of stuff from my Neon. That when I got the new car, that I knew I wasn't going to make those same mistakes.
What would you say was one of your biggest aha moments that you did learn along the way that you've taken with you, regardless of the build or whose car you're in or anything else? Like what would you say changed your outlook on sound quality the most over the years?
I think it was two things. Is when I got rid of the Neon because it was time to go.
Hmm.
The next thing was just sitting back and listening to actual music. It's like going to the home shows. I do that every year with the guys. We go down to the home shows and you get to listen to the music because you're not listening to things that are EQ'd up or they playing this certain track. You actually just feeling the music, knowing what the music can do. That's what like really opened me up.
Like those 2-channel hi-fi shows?
Yes, that I try to get you to come to.
Yeah.
It's so I do every year, like me, Julius, Albert, Equinero. My homeboy Dave. We go down to the Maryland big show down here, and it's a big home audio show. And we just get down to
What's that show called?
Capital Fest in Maryland. It's one of the big shows on the East Coast. So you get to hear from Wilson, Vanestein, you name it. All the big dogs are there. So you not only get to hear headphones, you get to hear turntables, you get to hear everything that is high end, tube amps, things like that. So it's like a really a big concert, and you get to sit in rooms that you would never get to experience different things. So like there's a shop up here that I like to also go like sometimes during the weekend. It's called the Hi-Fi House, and it's another home theater place that I'll just go and just listen to music, take the tracks, and listen to things that probably things that you couldn't afford, and sit down and just listen to it, get a feel for the music.
What are some of the main tracks that you listen to in those scenarios?
So I listen to a lot of vocals. I like pianos. I like hearing female vocals. I like an artist named Lettuce. She's a good thing. I like, if anybody knows me, I like old school music. So I'll listen to George Michaels. I'll listen to Aretha Franklin. I listen to Vanessa Ferrero. She's a jazz artist. I like to listen to those things just to open up the ears. If anybody knows me, I like to, if I hear your car, if you got a strong top end of a car, I like to listen because it brings out the emotions. So I like to get that vibe of what your car's doing. I want to hear your layering. Can I hear this? Can I hear this next section behind it? So I want your car to pop when I listen to it.
Are you going to be going to finals this year?
Yes, I will be competing in finals. I'll be competing in Emma X Limited class.
Nice.
I like to compete there. I like to see if me. I like to do install. I know a lot of guys I don't like to do install. I came from the old school, so install's never been a problem for me. So I like to push the limits.
Well, and I think one of the great things about having install, I was never good at installing. It was one of those things where it was either cobbled together or somebody helped or somebody else did the whole car. I mean, that was my options. I think one of the biggest things as far as competing install, even if you didn't do the install yourself, it still gives you involvement in the process, other than just handing your keys over. And
Hmm.
because then really the judge is the athlete of the day, you know what I mean? But with the install, you have full participation in the event, and at least the way Emma does it, with it being, kind of staged up through the categories. Obviously, you're doing it at more close to the far end of the more difficult side because you have creativity points and stuff like that you're having to earn on top of just having the basics and craftsmanship and everything else. But in the other classes at the other end, most people can max out those points just by having some basic documentation of their system of stuff that can't be seen. I don't know. It's beneficial for people to at least give it a shot, and I think the potential of people enjoying it more than they think they would is definitely there.
Well, like with me with the install, here's the thing that I look at install. We have a ton of cars to come to finals. Maybe 50, 60, you name it. What makes your car different from next car?
Hmm.
You got to sell your car to the judge. I don't get into, oh, well, I got this little piece that, is going to save my wire and all that stuff. That don't mean nothing. Sell me your car. Tell me why your car is different from this person's car to that person's car. Show me what makes your car unique. And when you could do that, that's the one thing that I do miss from the old school. That where, hey, I'm showing off my car, you explaining it. I don't care if you didn't build it and stuff, but at least know your car. Don't be like, well, here's my documents. Tell me about your car. What makes your car special?
Right.
And I think that's where people need to get back to, just, doing that. Now, in Emma, in the class I compete, you got bonus points.
Right.
And in the bonus points, some of them, they, if you say here's the standard, don't just say that, oh, what makes it, how I say it? Show me what grabs their attention. It doesn't mean that somebody's not coming to my car, because they might look at your car and be like, okay, well, that's not what I'm here for. What's
Right.
exciting? Show me, if it pertains to my install, yes, here it goes. Give me the points for that. You know what I'm saying? If I do this custom thing in here, cool, fine stuff. There's nothing that the guys are doing now that they didn't do back in the 80s and 90s.
Right. Right.
It's all this rebaggage. It's just how you present it.
Yep.
So it's fun and I like it. You know what I'm saying? Just that I just wanted to be universal all the way through. If you get points for this person, then you need to give that same points for that person.
Right.
And that's the only thing I have, in that category. I like it. I always did like install because I always knew my car.
Right.
One thing I noticed, or actually Chris pointed it out to me, is that since install has become a little more prevalent through EMA and MASQ requires it, and now IASCA does in a few of their classes as well, is that it looks more like a car show now at finals with everybody that has like these displays and banners and things like that, rather than it used to be for quite a few years just a bunch of cars parked inside and it looked like just a parking lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Welcome to Walmart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like the thing is show off your car. There's nothing that you're going to have that you're hiding from the next competitor. Because if you think you're hiding, somebody's telling on you that, hey, this person got this in their car. Just open it up, show your stuff. And if it's mandatory to have banners and have this stuff, make it universal to everybody to have it. If the people don't have the things that are required in this law, don't give them the points.
Right.
Make it universal. That's the only thing I have that it should be universal across. Show the people, because you're the ones that want to attract attention to your car. Don't get mad if nobody comes to your car, but somebody's going to see your car. There's always a niche for somebody that's going to like what you have. Just show it off. Have fun. We have gotten away from having fun at shows and became too much political. I want to get back to us having fun, where we still sit back and have a dinner with different teams and stuff like that, and just show up. Hey man, you got me this week. I'll get you that the next show.
Yeah.
Go back to that.
The camaraderie is great. And, certain shows still have a very high degree of that. I think Aggieland's a great example. SVR too.
ECA Finals was a great example.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a great show that the people that were involved with that, hats off to them. Hats off to everybody. It ran smooth. It was fun. We got out there at the time limit. Nobody had a problem. It was great.
Yeah, it was a good event.
It was relaxing. It was a nice, cool day. The venue was nice. I liked it. I truly did like it.
You mentioned as far as like the install and consistency and that, I have had plenty of conversations on it. So I know you think deep on the landscape of competition and how things are done and everything else. I mean, if you had a magic wand that you could throw over things, how would you change the landscape of competition today?
Judging. We need more critical and vital judging of cars. I don't care that if you somebody's homeboy or whatever it is. Like if a car is not good, this is the reason why I want to be a judge. I want to be able to give you back straight feedback and let you know that, hey, you need to do this in your car to get to this level. It don't matter that, you could go against a person's car, a top line car, and you don't give them the great feedback. The competitor's going home and looking at their score, and it's like, oh, I'm only 5 points. If I get this here, I'll be able to get them. No, you forgot everything else that wasn't wrong with your car. Leave the things that are doing it right first. Let's correct the things up. So that scale of how you put them, you got to actually tell the competitor what's wrong with their car and how to fix it. Because the first thing is he comes back home and he says, well, forget that judge, and that judge is no good. He don't know what he's talking about. But you didn't listen to your car. You didn't listen to the crucial feedback that the judge gave you. You only heard what you picked and choose that you wanted to listen to.
Right.
And that's where the landscape needs to be, where we need to fix that. When we fix that, we can fix a lot of other things in the thing. And you got to take the feedback from the competitors. So if the competitors say, hey, I don't want to do SPL, I don't want to do install, okay, don't force that onto the competitor because the competitor's going to get mad and say, you know what, I'm not going to play in this. They're going to move on. And you hurt yourself instead of listening to what the people want. That's the biggest problem right now.
Makes sense. What would you say is one of the most memorable moments you have in competition?
Winning my first world championship.
When was that?
My first one was in SLAP.
Yeah.
SLAP, that was a great organization
Absolutely.
that predated some of the guys who are competing now. But that was winning that one and then winning it twice and then winning my IASCA. Any of my championships I have won. And it was the greatest. You know what? I'm gonna take the IASCA one when we was in Atlanta when it was IASCA was partnering with Nopi. And the greatest thing, I got down there and I needed my car tuned. And I'm gonna throw two people out that helped me. Well, actually three people. Was Natan Buliano, George Garcia, and Julius Powles.
That's a
And
good
I
list.
won that year, and I won by 53 points. That's the year that DLS brought over. That's when you had to do RTA, SPL, install, all of that. And I won that year. And that was the highlight because I went down, wasn't expecting nothing. And Nate helped me. And I always, hold that dear to my heart because he came over. That's when everybody and their mama had an audio control sitting on top of the roof of the car to do the RTA, and you couldn't change your stuff.
Right.
So I always thank him for that. And Julius and George Garcia.
What year was that? Around 2002?
That was 2000 2005.
I was going to say, it probably had to be more like 4 or 5 to be with Nopi.
Yeah, because the next year I retired right after that.
Okay.
And then you got retreaded.
Yeah.
Just when I thought I was out.
Bringing him back.
Hey, I was out. I was sitting at home, and Julius Powell likes to come down to my house, and we would always get together. And the Neon was in the warehouse. It was just sitting in the warehouse. And he asked my wife, could I come back? And she said, long as it don't cost him nothing, he can come back. I still had all my DLS equipment and stuff like that. And I came back out in 2015. And been back out ever since.
I think I judged your car for the Alaska 3X at that show.
Yep.
At the 15 finals. And I remember it was memorably one of my favorites. Just, well, I had a Neon as well, so I mean that was part of it. But also yours, and it was funny because I was using just the factory locations and everything. You had the pods and all, but that top end you talked about, like that mid range to top end, we were actually fairly similar on our curve, and I was like, man, I really like that car. I mean, I really did. I mean, genuinely, yours and Kirk Proffitt's TL were a couple of my favorites.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
2015?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's when we were all in Alabama.
Oh, right. Yeah. Huntsville.
Yep.
The last year before we got thrown out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to get judged down in a parking garage that year.
Yep. Yeah. The Neon I had to get judged in the parking garage, and the G35 I was in the basically in the SPL hall. So it was like, man, this is not going to go well. And of course, I was going up against Brian Mitchell and Steve Cook, and they were both in the hall out front. So,
right, yeah.
But
a lot of people don't remember that finals. That was a great finals because the hotel was connected to the finals, so you just walked across.
Walk straight out. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the carbon monoxide alarm thing, that was great.
That was because of the SPL guys. Those were the SPL guys sitting over there. I felt sorry for anybody who wasn't in the hall. Y'all guys got it bad.
I think the worst, as far as that goes, at least recently, was probably 2012 in Indianapolis because it was the same thing. Like we were all in the same hall, but it was cold outside, and they were running the vehicles, getting them through the lanes, and man, it was atrocious. And because it was cold, like it didn't go anywhere; it just kind of stuck there. And yeah, it was not cool. Well, it was cold because then they tried to open up the doors, and then it was like 40 degrees after that. And
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that makes for a miserable event.
that was the when Scott Bawalda when he had the G35, he did the install presentation like in the alley outside of where the SPL lanes were and stuff. And Travis Chin was his install judge, and Scott, because it was like in this open alley, there was tons of room around because it wasn't, where you had all the cars next to you and everything. At the time, all the accessory fusing and everything was underneath the back seat. And so the back seat was just kind of sitting there to where you could kind of show the fusing and everything. We're all just standing there talking, whatever, no big deal. And all of a sudden we look around, and the bottom cushion of the back seat goes flying out the side of the car. And he had just took the seat and just like launched it out the side of the car to show the fusing. Like, okay, well, that was a little bit of extra added flair, I guess.
Yeah.
Travis
Yeah,
just
the
sitting
attitude.
there. Travis is just sitting there like, what just happened?
His style points.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I need 33 pieces of flair.
Let's see.
Is there anything else on your mind, Leonard, before we go into any other topics?
Nah, that sums up, the state of car audio the way I see it. That's my opinion, how I see it.
Yeah, for sure. So a topic that I was wanting to kind of bring up last week, and I haven't discussed this with Mike or anybody else, but I mean,
Surprise?
Yeah, not surprised. But as far as the idea of front subs, they seem to be coming back a little bit. I mean, speaking of Scott, when back at that 2002 Charlotte finals, he had the white 240 with a 12-inch sub in the dash, in the middle of the dash.
Oh yeah, was it MB Court?
Yeah, MB Court.
Yeah, it was MB Courts. Yeah, he was at MB Courts all that time. He used to have him on the side of that car. And
oh yeah, and the quarter panel. Yeah.
Yep, yeah. And then that's when he used to have the computer monitor, so he could hit it and energize, show the batteries, show the amps, and then turn them off and stuff.
Yeah, that was
cool. And he had the 6 Zapco C2K amps, and yeah, the MB Court. And actually, it's funny because the quarter panel subs that were in the back just for SPL, which I think it was like a 130 cap at the time. So he really didn't even need all that because he did IDBL at SVR that year, and I think he did like a 140 something. But that was also when Rockford Fosgate bought MB Court, and between SVR and finals, they wanted him running Rockford subs because the MB Court premium subs that were in there were made by Selenium in Brazil. Like MB Court just was like, here, we want these. And of course, Rockford was like, well, we can't get those anymore, so we don't really want to push that. So they wanted Rockford subs in there. Well, the Rockford subs had a bigger role on the surround, and it without like rebuilding the car, it pressed in the surround, touched the panel, so there wasn't enough of a gap between the panel and the sub, and he lost points on that in install, and that was part of the reason he went from first to fifth.
Oh man,
at finals. And I think I would venture to guess that was probably also a pushing for him to go with the reverse roll surround on the hybrid stuff.
Oh right, yeah.
This will never happen again.
I learned my lesson once. God fool me once, don't fool me twice.
But what do you guys? I mean, both of you and whoever wants to dig in first. But what's your guys' opinion on the pros and cons of doing a front sub and how it can help or hinder?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a magic fix, like like people first imagine it is. So I've done a few front subs in various different vehicles. And one thing that the biggest challenge is that there's not as much cabin gain in the very low frequencies for front subs. So you have most of them have a really tough time playing below like 40 hertz or so. I mean, some do a pretty good job, like Brian Mitchell's does a pretty good job. So there's obviously some exceptions there, but most of the ones that I've measured through tuning and stuff like that, they kind of struggle to get below 40 with any kind of a authority, like a rear sub. And we've measured it several times where if you just take the exact same subwoofer enclosure and just put it in the very back, you get quite a bit more below 40 hertz. But, the trade-off is that front subs will blend with the front speakers much more cohesively without as much work.
Mm-hmm.
But there's plenty of cars that do a good job with rear mounted subwoofers, but it is a bit more difficult.
I agree with you, Mike. But like the trade off I look at is like this: you gotta put a sub up there. Now you gotta find room for it. Now, are you actually getting the gain by having that sub up front? Now you got resonance, things like that. If you don't properly dynamat, things like that. You got mid basses up there. So if you got a say 10, 12 up front, and then you got 8-inch mid basses, then why do you have those 8-inch mid basses? They're not doing their job. Find
It
stuff that's going to work in your car. Sit down, actually listen to your car, work with your car, work with your install. If the speakers do your install properly, you won't need that. I don't have a front sub. I have 115, and I get my sub up front. Anybody who's have heard any of my cars, my subs have always been up front. I never had a problem with mid bass, anything like that. People try to run things. Here's the one thing that I learned, and even going to this over the years. You have to sit down and know how to tune. If you can't get the speaker right, guess what? You're going to run into these problems. Then you're going to add more and more stuff. I had to, the one who taught me how to tune is sitting right here on this phone. Is Mike. I went down to them. He taught me. I always can hear, but I didn't know the computer. Once you learn that, you can learn what to do with your car. Then you can learn how to make your car better. So upfront subs is a no for me, but I'm not docking you or anything like that. If it's good, it's good. It should blend seamlessly. You shouldn't even know that there's a sub up front.
Mike, from what you're describing, and I think Leonard, you're reinforcing, is it sounds like it's more of the subwoofer part of that is the maybe misleading part because it sounds like it's more of a mid bass reinforcement
Yeah.
versus being a replacement for a sub. So you still need a sub. Sounds like just, and maybe it's because more people are sticking with door mounted mid basses now. Far fewer people are doing kick panels, and I would say fewer cars are you're able to even do mid bass and kick panels to get that resonance out of the doors and everything else. So maybe getting that impact up front is where that upfront sub is coming into play to get that mid bass reinforcement.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I've heard plenty of cars that it works super well in, but it's surely not the magic bullet that some people think. And even a lot of the guys that are huge proponents for it overseas, like Peter and a few other guys that have YouTube channels and stuff, they really kind of call them like a mid bass or something like that,
Mhm.
Okay.
rather than subwoofer duty, because they also understand that it struggles to play very low. And even in Peter's own car, he has like, a manifold, infinite baffle sub set
Right.
up in the very back as well as the front sub.
Well, I think that's about all I had. Either of you have anything else you want to discuss?
One thing that I would say is I wish a lot of guys need to sit down and listen to a variety of the tracks in their different areas, not just in their car. Go out, experience things, and learn to listen, not with your eyes. That's the biggest problem right now. Don't think that you have to have expensive equipment to have a great car.
Yeah, that's actually a good advice, and something that Mark Eldridge really stresses in his own class that he does, having a good reference point. And there's not just one reference, obviously, and Clifton has stated this as well. There's not one only, set of speakers or venue or place, that makes the one sound that we measure against. It's kind of like these shared experiences amongst all these hi-fi type atmospheres, whether it's, going to live shows, listening to high-end audio and like hi-fi setups at home shows. Rarely, I think it would be a car that you would measure as a standard, because there's so many limitations as far as size, space, and things like that. But that's a pretty good point, because Mark Eldridge, who I consider one of the smartest people doing this, he always comes back to that same point as well.
I would say, and that's a good point, Mike. Seriously, they need to do that. And people, go outside and practice on your DSP.
Yes.
That's something that a lot of competitors need to learn. I don't care who you go to, a tuner or something, it doesn't matter. Or even yourself. You always gonna hear something in the car, and you might want to learn how to change it. And you don't know how to. If you learn how to practice that, you'll be able to go into your DSP and do these things, fix them. Other things, train your ears, know the frequencies. That's a big thing. Do test tones. Learn what frequencies these symbols come from. And that will help you in the tuning. And you'll be far off better than anything that you will ever experience. That's something, even for judges.
Anyone that's trying to learn how to tune, that's something that me and Clifton had talked about a little bit when we were in California, is people that are starting to learn. The one thing that they take for granted is how much practice it takes to get pretty good at it, and that's one thing that a lot of the top tuners, like Jeffrey and Miguel or Brian Mitchell or whoever, they've done hundreds, thousands of tunes. They practice this all of the time, and they've become very, very good at it. So you're going to have to, once you read or learn in person or whatever, you got to go out there and just start practicing, start doing it.
Yes, and another thing is the computer is not always right. You got to know how to hear, because the computer could tell you one thing, and you're not actually going in to listen to it, reinforcement of the sound. You might say, "Oh, the computer said this is great," but it's not great in your car. You got to be
Yeah,
able to hear that.
At the end of the day, well, so that kind of depends on what is your target for tuning, I would say. But if you're doing it for sound quality competition, so if this is your goal, then you have to keep in mind that the way it's judged is through people listening to the vehicle. So just because it measures, perfect or what have you, keep in mind that really it's someone that's listening to it that's going to determine the outcome of wins and losses.
Yes.
No, I agree 100%. It's just like anything you do. If you don't practice at it, you can't even if you have all the knowledge in the world, if you're not applying it and practicing it and getting better at it, you can't expect to, whether you're tuning or judging or just listening and giving feedback, if your reference slash experience slash practice in this is going to finals once a year and listening to some cars and saying, "Oh, I think that one sounded best and that one should have won," that's not really qualified feedback.
Yeah.
And you're doing yourself a disservice along the way.
Absolutely.
I like me. I'll call up one person. I have like two people, like my best friend, and he's a critical listener. So I'll make changes in my car. If there's something I can't figure out, I'll pick up the phone, call somebody, and I mean we have conversations for hours, and I tell him what I'm doing in the car, and I'm like, "Hey, is this correct?" Yada yada. Hey, show me a measurement and stuff like that. I have learned from him, and I keep learning from him. And I always say that it's the greatest tool that I have in my toolbox is Mike Myers and his brother down at Sound Factory.
Wait,
Because
did
I
you
go,
just call me a tool?
yes, you are a tool. You are the wizard tool. You're the wizard tool. The thing is, I can hear things, and I could call him up, and I could say, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And he'll say,
Right.
"Lenny, you're doing correct." I could send him something, and he knows I'm going to, because he's the one who taught me the computer. He
Right.
Everything that he has, I learned from him. I have a backup system. If I think I'm a mess up, I have a backup system that I can always go to, and there's my reference.
Mhm.
And that's the great thing about our relationship, because he's the one who taught me when I got this new car. I said, "Hey, man, can you teach me how to tune?" He said, "Lenny, come on down to Tennessee and I'll teach you." And I did that. And from that day on, he taught me the computer how to do it. I have everything that I need to be successful in competition from those guys. And I appreciate them for that, for teaching me.
Oh, that's awesome. You got the phone a friend.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, trust me. And I use that lifeline a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't really have, like secret information or anything like that. So anything that I know, I'm willing to teach other people. So if anybody wants to learn how, we're cooking up kind of a more of a structured syllabus to teach this out to other people. I mean, the original idea was basically to teach to dealers, because I think there's quite a bit that needs to be shared with other dealers, because there's plenty of them that are not embracing DSP technology and how to tune to a high degree on at least a weekly basis. So the original idea was to basically have a way to teach other shops, be professional when it comes to tuning. But weirdly, I've had a lot of SQ competitors ask me about these same things. So I think sometime within the next year or so, we'll end up doing more structured classes and stuff like that, to where we can teach other people what limited knowledge I have.
Facebook Messenger usually isn't the greatest of venues for that. So doing something a little
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, and I try, I try to answer everybody that messaged me for stuff
Sure.
like that, but there's really only so much you can kind of convey through that. And I've had some language barriers and stuff like that. People from
Right.
overseas ask me stuff, and they'll send me screenshots of like RTAs and stuff. And I'll tell them the steps that I use, but sometimes it doesn't come across right. And if they were in front of me, I could just show them where to
Right.
click,
Right.
how to get this stuff real fast. But so it's better in person. Like Leonard was saying, he wanted to learn how I do it, so he came down a couple times last year, and we showed him exactly how I tune. I mean, he can do it the same way I do.
Boom.
Yep.
Yeah, I learned from the wizard.
He's got wizard hats and everything.
Yeah,
Fully outfitted.
yeah, he's fully outfitted up there, and he has a great team behind him. It's not just
Yeah.
him. A lot of people don't
Yeah,
realize that there's Chris.
that's a great point. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that's a great point, because everybody thinks that I'm the guy that really makes all this happen, but that's really not true. Like I said, I'll do a lot of the legwork, as far as EQing to each speaker to target and things like that. But really, the part that makes it into something finished is whenever I'm done with that, and I'll get out, and then I'll tell Chris to get in, and he kind of critically listens to it. Then I'm able to jump into passenger side. He's able to convey to me what he hears, as far as flaws and stuff like that. And then we can go to work on correcting a few of these major flaws pretty quickly and get that resolved. And so I owe a lot of my success to my brother Chris.
he's the quiet one that everybody don't see, but he's
Yeah.
not really quiet if you know him.
Nope.
He's worse
Not
than
in
me.
person.
Oh no, he's worse than me. He's worse than me. It's a great team. It's a great thing. I put it like this: when you go to meeting people like that, you build friendships that you can never lose.
Yep.
You know, like I've met Clifton at shows, Tom Myers at shows. I think both of them are great judges. Also, Mike and Chris are great judges. You know, me, I
Yep.
threw my hat into the judges' ring, and I like being a judge because you get that experience of telling people what they need to do.
What made you want to transition into judging?
I always wanted to transition to judging like years ago, but I was nervous of it. And, you know, I didn't want people to feel like I'm going to help them out per se, because sometimes you get those feelings. And I'm like, no, you got to come correct every time. I don't care who your name is. I don't care if you got this big name or this little name. Come to a show and have your car prepared. I don't care what you did 3 years ago. I don't care what you did this year, last week. I want you to know what you did today. Helping out the competitors.
Yeah, that was one of the things I struggled with when I first started judging is like who would really listen to my opinion in the first place, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But the more experienced you get with that, I think people they don't worry about that so much as long as you have pretty good integrity.
Yeah. And like me, anybody who knows me, you know, I'm a straight shooter. I'm not going to tell you a lie. I'm going to tell you straight to the. Sometimes when I say something, it might cut worse than a knife, but I'm telling you the truth. I'm not going to give you no BS. You know, I have heard it. You know, it's like, why couldn't he say it a little softer? But did he lie to you? No, he didn't lie to you, but he just said it how he said it. But,
Yeah.
and the thing is it's fun. It's because like people will come up to me. It's like, hey, Leonard, could you come listen to my car and tell me what's wrong with it? Okay, this is what's wrong with it. Okay, cool. How do I fix it? This is what you got to do, the steps to fix it. So why not transition that into helping them in actually in the lanes? You know, giving them that same feedback that they can come over and ask you at the parking lot late at night or just before the judge is getting in the car. Why don't you be the judge to help them to say, okay, hey, this is what you need to do. This is what's wrong.
Yeah.
And go that way. You know, a lot of us who are out there can hear and stuff like that, but can you hear and translate it into putting the points on the score sheet and telling them how to fix it? I can do that. And I want to do that. That's the key. I want to do that.
Yeah, we definitely need more people stepping up because good judging is needed everywhere to keep everybody from getting burnt out and keeping it fresher. You know, where you're not the same. Yeah, there needs to be some consistency, but at the same time, being able to have some fresh ears in there is definitely crucial.
Yeah. A little different perspective.
Yeah, that's another point. Like if you have judges training, and I don't care what organization you're in, and you got new competitors, like they always say, we need new judges. Well, there's how many different judges trainings we have? Okay, we need to get those judges that paid for this stuff. We need to get them out there to judge show. So there could be different judges at a 2X or 3X. If they're good, they move up in the ranks. If they need more training, help
Yep,
them out.
absolutely.
Because what happens is the competitors start to get burned out with the same judges. Where you got these judges, if you got say judges training, 20 new judges sign up. Okay, I should see more judges. I should see that judge at a 1X or
Right.
something like that, getting the training that they need to be out there. So they just say, well, it's not a 2X ready. Well, how he going to get be a 2X ready if you ain't allowing the judge at a 1X?
Right. Richard has a pretty good philosophy on that too. I think with having multiple judges, you know, it makes it to where you can bring in newer judges in to the mix on the bigger shows where you have more judges, where you're not affecting the outcomes, you know, so much, but they're able to also see where they line up with other judges and correct. You know, it obviously there is that learning curve, but the goal is to where they're not, you know, they can't really affect the outcome so much, but they do, you know, they are able to have a direct feedback on how to get better themselves. And I like that, you know, outlook on it as well.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't sting. It doesn't sting as much. And plus, the spotlight isn't on this one guy. You know, being his first show to judge, and all eyes are on you to do a good job.
It's
Where
nerve wracking.
if it's split up against 4 judges or 6 at like the larger shows,
Right.
Then you don't feel so self-conscious, and you're able to kind of just get through the work and get your practice in.
Yeah, because I mean, you, Mike, you kind of made that transition over the past year or so yourself. As far as, I mean, you've been judging before, and it's not like it's new to you. But same with Leonard. But you've gone more into that being your primary role, and I think you kind of came up that same way where it wasn't all eyes on you right out the gate. You're able to kind of gain that confidence over time. And I think that's pretty a good way to do it for sure.
Yeah, and you can see how your scores and placements and such stack up against other judges and stuff like that, and you'll be surprised at how similar it all is.
Absolutely.
Because once you get that, once you get your feet wet, you understand what you're listening for. That's one thing. Know the material that you're listening to. I know sometimes at shows we don't get the music ahead of time, but the one thing I do like about ECA is each judge has their tracks that they're going to listen to in your car.
Right.
And they know what they're using. And then they could show you the reference of, okay, this is what I'm using this track for. Because you could sit down and ask the judge. Like, one thing is, any competitor that knows me, that if I judge your car, I give you about 3 to 5 minutes after I get out your car. Ask me any question that you want. I'm going to tell you exactly what your car is doing, what track I'm using, such and such. And I want you to know, if I hear a rattle, I'm going to tell you where exactly it's at. And every competitor always complains and says, I ain't got no rattle. I ain't got this. Okay, let's jump back in the car real quick before I go to the next car and show you it. And then there's no, after the show, that there's no fighting anything or on Facebook, none of that stuff. Because you got to see what your car did right then and there. And I like that.
Yep, absolutely.
And I also like how what ECA does, ECA and WCA, is where they put the judges' scores out there. So you can see what the judge placed you and how you were. So it's not, well, this judge, you got like a 4 judges. And they were like, well, this judge was the lowest score. How you stacked up against all of them.
Right.
Yeah, just because he was your lowest score, that doesn't mean that it was terrible.
Right.
He could have been low for every single person out there.
And that's typically how it is.
Yep.
Yeah. People.
And you got to
people
see
ignore the
all
high
of that.
score.
Because it's sitting there. You're like, okay, this is where he placed you at in this person and this person. And I love that. And I think that should be more available access to the competitor to see.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, I guess we'll wrap up there. I appreciate you both taking the time to do this, and Leonard, you sharing your life's experience in audio and everything you've done for it. I know, like I said, we've kind of circled each other for the past 25 years or so, I guess now, and I know you've definitely had an influence on what I've done in car audio. And we definitely appreciate your continued involvement, and I'm sure we'll all look forward to seeing you at finals.
Yeah, I appreciate everything, guys. Thank you for getting me on and interviewing me. I appreciate all your help over the years, feedback from both of y'all. It's been great, and stuff like that. I have no bad memories or anything of car audio. I love it. I have fun,
Yes, sir.
and I just like to get back to what it used to be. I'm talking about like the funness, not the seriousness.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and like this year, like coming to finals, I'm gonna enjoy myself. Don't matter if I win, lose, or draw. I'm going to have fun. Like last year was my first year taking my son to finals with me, and he had a ball. Anybody who saw him, he had a ball with everybody. And those are the memories that I can never take away because it's still fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, guys, and I'll talk to you on the next one.
Yep.
How about the ones we especially like? Which ones? The ones with the cars that go, I hear you. Hit it.